We're standing outside Mr. Monty's classroom looking at a poster about homecoming made by the Talkwoods ASB, probably last week or so. But when you watch this video, homecoming would have already passed and this poster would most likely have been discarded already too.
And well, if we consider this poster as a piece of art, the situation would bring up the question of preservation and temporality of certain artworks.
And in the 1950s and 60s, artists began playing with this very idea in what are known as happenings.
So, what are happenings? To give a simplified view of them, the term happening was first coined by Alan Capro and describes the wide range of usually performative art displays that didn't fit in with the traditional connotations of more classical performing arts of theater, music, and the likes.
They were usually unscripted and involved the audience. They also often were not meant to last and would change as the performance went on. A major theme of these happenings was to include the real world into art.
I like to think of them as almost social experiments that act as a mirror up to people's thoughts and behaviors.
Right, and one such example is Yayoi Kusama's Narcissus Garden.
In 1966, during the Venice Biennale Festival, Kusama showed up uninvitedly to the outside exhibits wearing a golden kimono and proceeded to set up her Narcissus Garden on the lawn with a sign saying, "Your narcissism for sale."
It consisted of 1,500 of these spherical, extremely reflective and mass-produced balls that she would then sell for $2 a piece to people whose eyes were caught by the exoticism of the display and by their own reflections.
And because they were so reflective, the main thing that would be showed would be yourself. In this way, you would become part of the work, if only temporarily.
Right, and the title of the piece makes its purpose fairly obvious. It refers to the ancient Greek myth of Narcissus and how he cared about nothing but a reflection of himself he saw in a puddle, eventually dying from doing nothing but staring at himself all day.
And though we are not as obsessed as Narcissus was, this idea of death by the self is still very apparent in Kusama's work.
To get a better idea, let's look at the historical context at the time. In the 1950s and 60s, consumerism was growing exponentially and people were buying things more than ever. From this, commercials and advertisements began to grab at anything they could to promote their products. This promotion didn't only take the form of clever marketing strategies and celebrity endorsements, but rather it also took a darker turn. Companies began advertising their products as a way to become a self.
For example, there would be advertisements saying that a good housewife would buy this new stove or mixer, that a real man would drink that beer, that good parents would buy their kids this toy. That to be something you would need our product.
In this way, what companies were beginning to sell was not a product, but an identity based on a product. When this happens, a person's sense of self starts to get replaced by this material sense of self. In that sense, a bit of us does begin to die like Narcissus did. And so, by selling these reflective balls, not only is Kusama making a quick buck, but she is also pointing out the absurdity of modern advertisement.
And her work would then begin to have an ironic undertone as it grew in popularity. Biennale's officials would shut down her exhibit, but the work remaining ever so popular would be reconstructed around the world, costing people commissioning the piece a lot.
And not only that, but the viewers themselves wouldn't have been able to buy these globes anymore.
And so, the people of today can't do anything but stare at these massive mirrors of narcissism as Narcissus did.
I wonder if this essentially commercialization of the work would take away from or reinforce Kusama's original message. What do you think?
Well, that question and others like it would keep the conversation regarding the preservation of art in relation to happenings alive. But eventually, Kusama and many other happenings artists would move on from these performances with the movement dying in the 70s. And Kusama would begin focusing specifically more on her famous infinity rooms,
Which you have to pay to get in.